and we're building the SS's like mini tracks, and not their tanks, but you know their transportation vehicles. Ford was doing that, and when it got bombed, Ford decided he wanted to sue the government for losses. So somebody out there is funding these people, pointing these people these weapons in a direction, giving them money, buying whatever they need, and they're causing civil unrest. And what are we doing? While getting the message out on spaces is great, but what are we actually doing? You know, I do remember a time when there was a group of people, and I'm not just tooting the horn, but if you look back, for as much of a joke as it is, because they really are a joke, and it started out as a joke, there was only one group of people that were punching back. Now, I'm not advocating for violence, but I'm just saying protecting grandmothers. There was only one group. The 3%ers, they didn't do shit. They talked a big game on Facebook, but when it came right down to it, they're like, oh, no, 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 we can't do this. You know, the Oath Keepers, still, irrespective of how you feel about Stuart Rhodes or John Schaefer, and I like John Schaefer because I like Art Iced Earth. I like his band. I've been listening to his band for 20 years. Irrespective of how you feel about those guys, the Oath Keepers didn't do anything. The only people that did anything to protect our citizens are now not around because everybody kind of was like, oh, all right, well, you know, the leaders are in jail now. You know, where is that spirit? Where is that spirit of protecting one another? Where is that spirit of going out and saying, no, you can't beat up grandma and grandpa. No, you can't beat up these kids because they're wearing a MAGA hat. No, you can't do this because this is not what Americans do. We, it, it's, it, I don't know where it is, but you know, we're allowing, again, to be repetitive, we're allowing reporters to be assassinated. And I am truly fucking tired of it. Anybody that wants to judge Cookie, go ahead. James, go ahead, and then we'll go to Cookie.
Yeah, I just wanted to jump in and say earlier you kind of alluded to this. Here's the upshot of what's happening with the swatting, is that I think we're going to be able to get away from cops kicking in doors because of all of the things that we've talked about happening. I think that we have the opportunity, not that it's likely at this point, but the opportunity exists because look at all the danger that happens from these SWAT action incidents already, right? Why is the FBI raiding everybody's home with a fucking HRT team? Right? This is bullshit. It should have never happened, and it has to stop, right? We don't need to do this except for in extreme situations. But we've adopted this policy of, well, you know, too many cops are getting shot by knocking on doors. Well, really? Well, why don't you just send some shit in the mail? Like, for real, like 98% of all people will show up if they're fucking asked to show up, right? We don't need to be kicking everybody's fucking door in. And look at the innocent people that we see all over YouTube getting shot by cops executing search warrants that, you know, it wasn't even the original person that they were executing a search warrant on. Or the guy was in bed sleeping and got the shit scared out of him, right? Like, these are, you know, things that can be avoided simply by not performing that action. So we do have an opportunity there to get rid of this entire idea that we should be fucking invading people's houses over dumb shit.
Truth. Cookie, go ahead, bro.
Hey, I think Joseph was ahead of me.
Then Joseph, you go ahead, bro.
Hey there, brother. Yeah, difficult topics today. But yeah, I just be honest with you. I think a lot of this is going to come to a head. I'm a little frustrated. I'll be honest with you. I am very frustrated, actually. But I understand why things are occurring the way they are, because the FBI and the CIA is completely corrupted. It's rotten to the core. Our entire agency system, all of our three-letter agencies are, 70, 80% corrupted, and that's being nice. So they can't go out and arrest people because they don't have the manpower. They have to actually flush everybody out and rehire, rebuild from scratch, which is going to take forever. And then we have the problem with our court system being entirely communistic. 2/3 of our courts, 2/3 of the lawyers in the United States are 100% leftists. They are dead left. There is a nice, solid conservative core on the right, but 2/3 is on the left, and that includes all the judiciary. And I'd say about a third or more of even the people that Trump appointed are really leftists. They hide, they play a good game, and then they get in, and then they have these lifetime appointments, and their true colors come out. I think we need to end lifetime appointments. I think the judiciary system is a failure in the modern era. That doesn't mean that it didn't work or is not, it was great in its time. But with today's instant communication, the ability to transfer people from place to place, judge shopping across the entire country, this is nothing that they had ever conceived of, our founding fathers or anybody in the early judiciary when they set up their systems. They were circuit judges because they moved around by horse. So of course they had quite strong powers because there was nobody else there to make a judgment. That's just not the case anymore, and I think it's bullshit. I think we really need to reform it completely. The system does not work. We see that they use judges in Romania to stop an election. They used judges in Brazil to stop an election. They're trying to use judges in Israel to remove Netanyahu. They tried using judges to remove Donald Trump. They are trying to use judges now to stop the agenda of Donald Trump. So now we got to understand that that is their play. They have been focusing very hard on that judiciary for many, many decades. And I just don't think we can pretend that we're going to work through the system and get anywhere with it, because we're not. We're going to hit brick walls every freaking place, all the way up to the Supreme Court, because the lefties are there, the lefties own it, the money is there, and every one of them is compromised by the same things we're trying to get rid of. How do we ask the people who are becoming filthy rich, are having sexual encounters with kids to determine what we should be doing with this stuff? I mean, come on, it's just fucking ridiculous. There's just no way they're gonna allow us to have any of the information that we're looking for. They're not going to do the arrests because they would have to arrest themselves, and that's never going to happen. They're the problem, not the solution. The judiciary is the problem, not the solution. The politicians are the problem, not the solution. So I mean, what are we doing here? We can vote them. We can vote all day long, every day, and our voting systems are totally corrupted. There is zero chance in New York that we could truly get any real solid conservatives here, regardless of being, I'd say 60% of the people are extremely conservative where I live, but our local politicians are all rhinos and they're all weak. Why? Because the voting system is so fucking corrupt that they can, don't even get me started. I mean, I'm going to have to run my own show later just to vent. Sorry.
Thanks, Joseph. Cookie, do you want to still go? Because your hand's down.
Yeah.
Go ahead, bro.
Joe, I thought you made some great points on this. I think that I think they need to make this swatting stuff a domestic terrorist charge, and they need to get after these people, charge them, and actually send them to prison for a while. It is a deadly, dangerous game that they play with this stuff. Now, having been on the law enforcement side of this, we have to respond. We have to take precautions. We have to do the things that we got to do because we don't know for sure that it's not, a swatting or, all we know is whatever the phone call is. And, it could be very limited information. As far as with the FBI and doing their search warrant raids, that was complete bullshit. I didn't see one of them that deserved a SRT team to do this stuff. Most of these guys, they could have said, "Hey, show up for court on this day," and they'll come, or wait till they're out of the house. They know their schedule. They're sitting there watching them. Most of these guys had at least had conversations with them, and so there wasn't reason to believe that they wouldn't cooperate or be in an armed standoff to go into their house because they have a search warrant. It was overkill, and I think it was done on purpose to show that these guys are in charge. and I think it was a message more towards the MAGA group than it was towards anybody else. You know, especially when they got ABC right there doing, you know, a live, hey, they're kicking this door in, come, let's go, kind of stuff. So until we change all that stuff, and until, you know, it's going to take some time because of how deep rooted this stuff is in. So it's going to take time to get these people out, get the right people in, get people in there that actually want to fight crime and doing real crime. And most importantly, to have the supervisors and leaders that aren't going to play this game. They're going to do what's right by the law and not by what, you know, what their, you know, whatever administration is in is telling them what to do. So hopefully, you know, in time, this will all change.
All right, so we got hands, but real quick, Cookie, dude, you know, I like you. You and I have a lot of respect for you, bro. I do. We've been in spaces together for well over a year now. I want to offer another opinion on this, and I'll make it quick. I'm not a guy who just blindly backs the blue. Okay, I've never been a fan of law enforcement because I honestly truly believe that law enforcement is laws are designed to create more criminals than necessary. I think we need very limited laws, only laws that have victims. But past that, I think everything that we can, you know, everything that people go to jail for that are victimless crimes are ridiculous. So, and I've seen it, I've experienced it. So I'm not. I do have friends that are cops. You know, they're good dudes. But when you're not an apologist, and I don't mean this, but I'm asking you from your perspective as a former law enforcement officer. So understand, I'm not coming after you about this. When is it that these cops that willingly partook of these actions, kicking people's doors in, when does the line stop when you say, well, I was just following orders? If you are a cop, since you were, and you and somebody and your chief told you to go and do something that you know was violating your oath, violating the Constitution, and you still went and did it happily anyway, who's at fault at this point? Because I don't believe for one second any law enforcement, from the lowliest beat cop to you know, sheriff's offices to the FBI, anybody that willingly partook in all of this shit, they are just as culpable, and they can't use the excuse, I was just following orders. I know plenty of cops that have left the force. One of them specifically is Jared from Guns and Gadgets, and I point him out. He was a cop in Douglas, Massachusetts. He told his chief, "Do not, under any circumstances, send me out on a red flag. I will not enforce red flags." So he ended up taking early retirement because of it. He stood his ground. He said these are unconstitutional. But all of these other cops that they look like they look gleeful when they're kicking doors in. They're all, you know, you got the HRT teams, or you got Nemlek, you know, out of Boston, you know, all these guys that they're all pumped up and ready to, you know, kick somebody's fucking door in because, you know, you got insurrectionists, or you got this, you got that, you got this, you got that. And then, you know, they go back and they go, you know, when they get called out on their bullshit, they go, I was just following orders. I think that's bullshit. And I'm not attacking you, bro, but I want to know from your perspective how you feel about what I just said.
Um, you know, I think you have a lot of valid points, and you know, looking at the COVID stuff, and these officers are out there arresting people because they're not wearing a mask, or they're gathered in a thing. You know, it was all a civil issue in the first place. I was pissed watching it because that isn't right. You, I mean, that is a violation of their civil rights to go on what they did. Um, you know, I was fortunate. I was already retired when the COVID started, but I know out here in Wyoming, a lot of the county attorneys, district attorneys, you know, were telling their people, "Hey, we're not going to enforce these things." Um, but you know, blindly following an order that's no. If it's a violation of any of the Constitution rights, you can't do that. I know one of the things that I never wanted to make was case law for bad things, doing bad stuff. Now, I was fortunate in the three that I had that went to the Wyoming Supreme Court came back in our favor, but you don't want to make shitty in case law. And you also don't want to get sued either. Um, uh, as far as kicking the doors in, like you were talking, and following the orders, I think you could look back to Garrett O'Boyle when he was on the one call and they found out afterwards, how unnecessary it was. And that was, I believe that's one of the things he blew the whistle on. And I think he actually left the SRT team after that. I could be wrong, but lots of times you don't know all of the dynamics. All you know is, hey, there's a bad guy in there. He's got firearms. And so you're not privy to everything. And I think that was in his case when somebody was actually killed on a FBI raid. But yeah, absolutely, following blindly is wrong. Um, when I was a training officer, one of the first things I told the officer when we got in the car and we started driving out, whatever you do, you make sure you're following the laws, you make sure you're following, constitutional rights. Whatever you do, don't ever lie about anything. Don't ever make up anything, because I will not back you. I will not stand behind you. I will tell the truth. Don't ever put me in that position. Unfortunately that never happened and I was thankful for, but and it's hard to stand up to your supervisors, because most times these supervisors are the ones that could pass a test, so they got up there. They're not the ones that actually could go out and do their jobs, like the others. Um, uh, so it's tough because there's a lot of outside influence and things. You got to think about your family, your job, your career, uh, on top of things that go on within your department as well. Um, uh, it's tough, and kicking doors in, that's kind of a hell of a rush. I did a few of them. It's scary, but it's a rush. So I mean, that's might be what you're seeing, that glee look when they do kick the door on some things. But I could tell you, like I said before, I didn't see one FBI raid that they showed and did that warranted the level of force that they were using. They weren't following that uh, use of force continuum that every agency has, the federal government has, for this stuff. Um, yeah, it's hard to say. It's hard to justify, actions one way or the other for 'em. But I
Well,
think you have a valid point.
Cookie, I appreciate your candor. All right, let's get to these hands. It was Nostradani first. And what's up, man? You changed your avatar there.
Now, hold on. I
Uh,
just wanted to, Rob, I just have to go. So I just wanted to say goodbye to
Okay, go ahead,
everybody
John.
real
Go ahead.
quick before I do. Thanks again, Rob, for all the work you did today. And certainly thanks to the Colonel for having me on. And,
That was my pleasure.
I'll be on with James tomorrow night on Pirate Radio. So, we'll obviously talk more about these topics. I look forward to it. And I look forward to talking to all of you next week. Thanks so much.
Thanks again, John, man. I truly appreciate it. All right, Donnie, what's up, bro?
Hey, Rob. Man, I don't want to pile on anybody with this law enforcement thing because I've got friends that are retired law enforcement as well. But frankly, I think we're becoming a victim of poor help, and it's in all trades. We're running out of people, good workers to choose from that have good minds and good ethic. And I think that it's really difficult to call yourself a conservative and be blue line. I'm pro justice. I'm pro law and order. I am not pro calling the police to check on your aunt so they can shoot her dog on the way through the door. There's just too many things happening now, and I think one of which is poor training. I think these guys need to be paid more, they need to be trained more, and there need to be fewer of them. Okay. Um, I just I see this. I see this attitude with nowadays. You're seeing this with police. It's almost like they're trying to be the nation's freaking hall monitor, you know, where there's this presumption of authority over you out in public where you have given no reason to relinquish that authority, where but these guys are under opinion that they have a dominion over you. And I try to remember and I try to remind everybody that our governance, our government, this society only works through a moral and what's the word I'm looking for? We we are governed. We allow ourselves to be governed at our consent. Our society was made up to be a moral society. You do say you do break the law, you get in trouble. You don't go and murder everybody involved to try and save your own ass. You take your ticket or whatever it is, and at your consent, because you could just as easily go off the hinges and be a damn fool. But because you are a moral human being and you consent to these laws, you show up in court, you make your argument, you give your peers a chance to judge you. It's one of the greatest systems ever created by man. Unfortunately, it has been perverted. And when I listen to people, like I said, when I listen to people talk about being conservative, the last thing, you know me, Rob, I'm disabled. I got a service animal. The last thing I want is somebody busting through my door and my dog to show them a tooth, and they're going to slam them. Because what do you hear every time? I'm going home tonight. Okay? That don't matter if you're crossing the street illegally. That don't matter if you got pulled over for doing 10 over. He's going home tonight if that means you're not. And it's that kind of attitude, that kind of willingness to just take another's life or to go and don't get me wrong, there are people that behave in a manner that you have to defend yourself. And I get this. But I also think there are people that wear the badge that have a fascination with authority and with the potential of harming another human being and not being held accountable for it. And what I believe you're seeing nowadays is the pendulum swing back. You know, we're no longer consenting to unwarranted searches. We're no longer consenting to just giving our rights away and you know that whole well, if you didn't have anything to hide, why wouldn't you just blah 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 blah? That's not the point. The point is I'm entitled to my privacy. I'm entitled to, you know, my autonomy until I have stepped over that line that gives you dominion over me. And I don't know if I'm confusing you or if I'm saying
No,
it
I'm
in the
following.
wrong way, but but I think in today's law enforcement, these people mistakenly think they have that they're the nation's fucking hall monitor, and they have dominion over everybody. And you're just supposed to, oh, let me see your ID, let me do this, let me do, you know, no, no, it's way. Sorry, I got a call, but it just but we've acquiesced to this, and and frankly, I think we've overwhelmed our own police department to the point where they have to hire so many people, and because you're a bunch of rat bitches, pardon my language, but everybody's like, oh my god, my neighbor's dog won't shut up, let's go call the police. You rat bastards. You know, it fires me up. I'm sorry, I gotta stop, because this whole subject, I could go on all night, and I have no axe to grind with the people that have the job. I think the position we're in is because of ourselves and the amount of freedom we have acquiesced to get here. No offense, but I get frustrated when I hear people, I voted Obama, but I voted Trump this time. Well, you fucking knucklehead. Where were you? You know, I just, I have a hard time with people. I'm glad they woke up and God bless them for waking up. But for Christ's sake, quit using government to solve your problems. And that includes the police. They got better things to do. Every one of them wants to be an Angela Lansbury or fucking Columbo. Let them go out and solve real crime. Anyways, thanks for letting me rant, Rob.
No problem, Donnie. We're going to go with Bishop next. Bishop, go ahead, bro.
So I've been thinking about it. I said it today in the punch bowl. I was like 10 years, like when Trump came out and he said 10 years sentence for national monuments. And I'm realizing after Donnie saying he'd lose a dog, but I think it still need to be a federal crime with teeth. Right? Because if you think about it, depends on how the person reacts when the door gets kicked in, what will they grab, and what will be the response of the police officer. So at this moment, the person that made the phone call should be premeditated murder, right? So 10 years would be too light. It wouldn't send the message. I would say 20 years to life, a federal crime with teeth. That needs to be put out. That needs to be put out. We've seen the video where the officers walking on the lady's property, and then they go ahead and lay to rest the dog that ran up on top of the officer. Right? I have a dog that does the same damn thing, and I don't want to lose my dog. Right? My dog's not going to bite you, but that officer doesn't know that. But like I said, a federal crime with teeth is what the message needs to be sent. And what's interesting right now, you know how Elon reposts um, Nick's posts, right? He reposts them. Definitely, probably Gunther is definitely in Elon's eyes. So I think visibility might be pretty high right now after a couple of notable individuals just got swatted. Not your podcasters, but now X. So I mean, just for instance, for example, is his name is, I think, Jim Fishback. He's the one who came up with the 80-20 proposal, and Elon says, I will present that to Trump, right? That's the Doge dividend, the Doge, what, fund dividend or something. So that's what I want to hear. That's what I want to happen. Because I don't want to ask for more technology, right? We don't want more technology in our life. I've even thought about the dispatcher having access to maybe local carriers, cellular carriers to give a phone call to that house. But I don't want that, right? So that's my 2 cents.
What do you mean, the dispatcher to have local cell phone carrier access exactly?
Oh,
Well,
I got kicked out
well,
of the space. I just had to reconnect to the space. God damn it.
well.
Listen
What
to
I
shit we're
mean,
talking about, and I get booted.
I'm saying by carrier information is that they could check those, say for instance an AT&T or Verizon or whoever it is, they could type in that address and bring up the cell number to the occupant or whatever, right?
They do
I'm
have
just
that access, Bishop.
well, then what? I mean, that needs to be utilized then if that's the case. But then do we want that utilized?
They they
I'm not
utilize
saying I'm not saying to go after the caller at this moment, but to verify and call that cell phone. This is the police dispatcher. How's your husband doing? Or call, because if they swat a guy, right, then they're saying that he's harming his family. I would go for a child or a wife or somebody and say, hey, this is police dispatcher. We got a report. I don't know. That's just
well,
one of the other solutions I'm
so,
thinking. But I'm saying the message needs to be sent out. Federal crime with sharp ass teeth. That's where I'm at. But yeah, the other discussion
yeah,
is.
Yeah, it is supposed to be a federal crime, and just to like elaborate on that, they don't have the access to cell phone records without a warrant to get the related family members or stuff like that. Like that's a little bit different. You can't triangulate and then have that information access. But the caller itself, yes, they do have that access, but depending on how the report is made, because a lot of these numbers are like Google phone numbers or other app phone numbers, and they're bouncing their VPNs. They're being
Or
very
burner
sneaky.
phones.
Yeah, and
Oh,
they're
but no,
being very,
no, no.
very
Well,
sneaky.
well, no, 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 no. That's not. I'm saying to be preemptive and protective. And if they gave you an address and they say that this person is doing that to access some sort of system that would allow you to gain the party that's being swatted, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, and there's two different
No,
types of SWATs happening here. There's one that recalls for an emergency situation where act now, act now, act now, these people are about to die. And then there's ones of false reporting of drugs and other stuff they're supposed to investigate, where that would make more sense. But when depending on the situation, these people are crying, being like, I'm the neighbor, and I can hear them literally threatening that they're going to shoot everybody in their house right now. I saw them walk in with a gun and stuff like that and crying. And that recalls for a lot less making sure that these are accurate reports in an emergency response. So depending on what type of report in the swatting that happens, and again, those other swats were like the wrong address and other things like that were things where they could have taken their time and they should have been more careful. But some of these other ones happening are like, oh my God, people are about to die right now. Respond, respond, respond. They're armed and dangerous. If that makes any sense.
no, makes sense to me. Rob, I was talking about a federal crime like with teeth, like 12, 20 years.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I heard that
Preemptive.
part.
Okay, yeah, preemptive murder, because
Oh
that's what's
yeah.
going to happen.
Well, I
That's
mean,
what's going to happen.
Bishop, do you know the YouTube channel The Quartering?
Ordering? No,
The
probably not.
Quartering. Yeah. So he's got a fairly popular YouTube channel. His name's Jeremy. He's a definitely a neckbeard, but you know he's a conservative and he owns a coffee company too. He's been swatted multiple times, and they finally got the guy who swatted him. He had like 300 charges of swatting. He was being paid to do it. People found him on the dark web. They paid him to swat these people, Jeremy from The Quartering being one of them. This little douche only got 4 years in prison.
Not enough teeth.
No,
Not
no, because
enough teeth.
yeah, I think he was like, I think he was 19. I don't know. Maybe James knows, but I think the kid was like 19 or 20 years old. Kid's gonna get out and still be able to have a life. And the first time they swatted Jeremy, he was actually doing his show on YouTube, and they pulled him out of the house. They threw his wife out, threw his wife in cuffs, and he ended up. I think the first time they did it, he ended up moving. Then after he moved, I think he's in Wisconsin, and the next time it happened, you know, the cops came to the house and they were hot, but they weren't as hot as the first time. And then, you know, he became, real close with the chief of police. And, you know, anytime somebody got swatted, it got to the point where they ended up calling him because he gave the chief of police his number. Hey, Jeremy, we just got another swatting call. And he's like, no, I'm downstairs in the basement. You guys are more than welcome to come by. His wife opens up the door and they walk in, say hi, and they leave. But it took extreme violence to get to that point. And the next, what happens if they kick again? I got pit bulls. Somebody kicks my door in, my dog's gonna get you. My dog's gonna go right after you. My dogs are like, they're not violent at all. I mean, they're older pit bulls too, like 10 and 7. But my boy, he is so protective of this house. Like he will chew squirrels to death because the squirrels are they're a threat to the house. Then he's not a fan of the squirrels. He's like, oh no, you're invading my house. I couldn't imagine if somebody kicked my door in. This dog would destroy you. And then I would have to shoot you for shooting my dog. I don't give a fuck who you are. So yeah, they obviously don't know that they know. You know what? I want to err on the side of, oh, they don't know, but no, they do. They do. And I honestly truly believe that they are being paid to do this. They're the whatever these organizations are, the same ones that paid for these fucking t-shirts for these pro Hamas protesters that are taking over Trump Tower in New York City. The same people that pay them are the same people that are paying these pieces of shit to SWAT conservatives. They lost hard. They know it. They're feeling the pain of it. So what do? They lash out. And because they have no balls, they have no friggin' testosterone, they have no fucking strength, they do it from behind the screen. They're not man enough to fucking go knock on somebody's door
Soy
because they know
boys.
they would get fucked.
And yeah, sorry, Bishop. I was like in and out. I only heard a few parts here and there, so sorry for missing anything. But yeah, these are supposed to be federal crimes. But the problem is we do not prosecute them enough. Like you can go to pot, or you could sell pot on the street and go to jail a lot longer than you would for an actual federal crime, which is bullshit.
Agreed. Joseph, go ahead, bro. You've been waiting a long time, man. Thank you for your patience.
Sure. Oh yeah, I'm patient. I wait. Punch bowl, good training. No, honestly, to be 100% honest, you're back to the problem though. What Bishop's answer? What feds? I mean, that's the problem. You could have a wonderful federal law, but then you got to have a federal court system that works. And you have to have FBI's to arrest them. And then do you want to expand the FBI's role? I don't know. I mean, I think what we need to do is make Google numbers and mirroring numbers, all that completely legal. We need to scrub that from the system. You should have to use the number that you have, and that number shows up. That's the only answer that I think makes any sense. That way they can't pretend to be your neighbor. That would end the problem, that you would see the number, or at least when you call the police department, it should be able to, I mean, come on, you tell me they don't know how to have it go all the way through all that crap and say who the real number is? That's what I'm thinking.
Joseph, let me
let
me devil's advocate that situation, okay? Then what if you come across the whole point of I'm trying to protect my phone number so that people can stop stalking me and therefore hunt me down because I'm an innocent female or whatever? Because that happens a lot too, and that's kind of the justification behind it. And I'm just playing devil's advocate. I get your point for sure.
No.
But what would you do
I
in that
hear you.
situation?
Well, that'd be the question. What I'm talking about is if somebody's calling into the police, they should have their own number be able to be revealed. If you're talking to the local police, that's what I'm trying to say. There has to be a way to either A, make it so that they can just remove that number, or it just doesn't go through, that you have to use a real number. I mean, that way they know who they're talking to. They can't just pretend to be somebody else, because that's what they're doing. They're calling and saying, I'm the neighbor, I'm this, I'm the wife, the mother, whoever. And they're doing this whole rigmarole, and they're believable because the numbers are correct. And also, by the way, I got scammed, a horrible, bad scam. And they did the same type of thing. They used a number that was local. They made it seem so plausible. And then when the police got involved, by the time they went through it, they're like, the number's gone, doesn't exist. We can't trace it. What do you mean you can't trace it? They have no information on it. So that's the craziness. That's what I'm saying. We have to do something. There's too much anonymity. So that's my problem as far as the police go. But I mean, again, what's the right answer? I don't know. I'm just saying this isn't the right answer. It isn't working.
I can agree.
Donnie, go ahead, brother.
I'm going to have to push back a little bit, because what I'm hearing is give the police more authority to look into your private life to provide you with protection. And I'm against all that. I get the protection, but I think the discretion has to be at the law enforcement side on this. If it's a first time deal, then you approach with caution. Okay, maybe do a little research on the address, who it is, before you respond. They're obviously not going nowhere. But let's face it. I mean, how many times have people called the police and they're waiting a half hour to get there? But if you want them in a hurry, tell them you got a weapon. They'll be there in about 2 minutes. Which brings to mind another argument. Why do police always treat you like a criminal because you own a firearm? And I could go all day with that. But I think with this swatting thing, we have to take into account that that some of us are a little bit more higher profile, and like what and I'm not doing the whole blame the victim thing. I don't want to go down that road, but I think there has to be some caution extended by the responding party so that nobody gets hurt. If you're true, if your true moniker, your true effort as a law enforcement officer is to provide safety and security for your your community, then you have to err on the side of caution, which means you're putting yourself in danger. And that's, you know, as a retired iron worker, that's what you signed up for, bud. You know, that's just the nature of the beast. And I agree with what Bishop is saying, that these laws have to have more teeth. But I don't think it's the law itself, Bishop. I think it's the judge and the prosecuting attorney. They're so politicized that the law is there. It can be used. You can be charged with enough things to put your ass away for a long, long time. They are choosing not to do it. And because that just, you know, during the civil rights era, it was, and this, I'm jumping around a little bit. During the civil rights era was when they first made it against the law for a felon to possess a firearm. Do you know how many things have been created as felonies now? They're using to disarm us. We're talking driving infractions, folks. We are talking things that felonious behavior, back when these laws and these rights were thought of and written down to be enshrined for our protection, felonious behavior usually ended at the end of a rope. Now everything's a felony. Now everything's a gross misdemeanor. So that lawfare has also been used to disarm us, to take the teeth out of society itself. Like I said, the civil rights movement in the late 60s was when they came up with this idea, and then all of a sudden everybody's a felony. I'm sorry I broke up your Black Panther party, you know. But it's like I said, these are things we need to think about, and I think the laws are available. I think the response to the fear of freedom, or the fear of what we're doing and what we're experiencing with one another, is not the relinquishing of more rights and the creation of more laws. We have more laws than we can ever fathom and understand. We just need a correct usage of the ones that are on the books. Thank you.
Let me jump in. Something I've been wondering how messaging can be put out there in the public, right? So, how many people do you think are watching the press secretary, right? So, and then the amount of individuals that actually the press corps that gets to sit in there now, right? So, what if, say, for instance, because we can, yeah, we can look at prosecution and we can look at the judges that are not doing it, or they deem to look the other way. So, what if, say, it happens? I don't know. Where does Gunther live? Maybe he's in Florida. Maybe that'll work
Gunther's
to
in
his.
Texas.
Well, that might work to his advantage too, right? So what if that prosecution goes through and they go ahead and throw the book at the individual once they find the perpetrator, right? The premeditated individual initiated the SWAT call, right? And press secretary goes and brandishes that information, and even, and I have no problem if you did that. Your privacy is out the window. There's no, is that Louisiana, or there's another sheriff out there that was just putting all the perps out there, right? So for her to do that and then to follow through with the individual fake media that deems it is important or not to put it on mainstream media, to actually call them out the next day and then continue calling them out and leaving that up there until it's reported. Because I always look at, I think, let's see, my I have relatives in Colorado, and I think I was stationed at Fort Carson after Germany. And when I got there, the most craziest thing was called carjacking. And I can't remember if it happened in California first or if it happened in New York, right? But how did that information get from New York and then it became a thing in California? Vice versa, right? And it was the news. The news shared it, and then it became a gang thing. And I think at the time in Colorado, because I'm not, I Garcia Valdez even a little bit of Dash Aminez is my family, those gangs wouldn't beat each other up. They would run by each other and beat the crap out of their lowriders. There's a lot of money involved there. It's kind of like one of the weird things. But, anyways, like I'm saying, the mainstream media is the one that spreads it. So the mainstream media needs to start owning up and getting those examples and that message out there. And then the lunacy of the judge and the prosecution of not doing the right thing will be a spotlight. That's just me random, as I say, my random shower moment.
Rocks, go ahead.
Okay, just because I don't see any more hands up, so I'll just try to like collectively put a lot of my thoughts out there just because you guys know me. I like to play devil's advocate on everything just because this is what we do in all type of strategic situations of all sorts. Is what could happen if XYZ happen, what could be the reaction, what are people's psychological thinking, and then what Bishop was just saying about the mainstream media and what they put out there. Remember, those are all controlled by like deep state globalist actors. They're literally paid to push whatever agenda their bosses tell them. Only now and then you'll get like a rare little nugget. But trust me, if they're on the mainstream media and they're not these small media sources, they usually get their PP smacks for not pushing the agenda they want them to push because they're all controlled, they're all bought out at this point. And again, same kind of threat levels of everybody else. You'll lose your job if you don't comply. Not saying it's right or wrong, but sometimes